My name is Keeve. I am a novice speaker, and I have been using spelling to communicate for nearly 10 years. Can someone please explain how my carers are not required to be able to support me to communicate? Life is really hard enough, so why silence me instead of respecting my chosen form of communication? How many more people must suffer in silence needlessly? Help us.
Spelling to Communicate then teaches individuals with sensory motor challenges the purposeful motor skills necessary to point to the letter to spell as an alternative means of communication. So it is a type of AAC, it's what we call low-tech AC. So in S2C, we presume competence. That means that we believe that everyone can and wants to learn, and that everyone with the right tools can access communication, which ultimately leads to access, agency and autonomy. And with those three, there's literally nothing you can't do.
Hi, I'm Fiona Johnson and I came from Monaghan today for the sessions that was organised by Suzanne O'Hara. It was actually mentioned to me from another mother who has, their child has become fully operational with the Spelling to Communicate.
I'm Charlene and I'm Michael's mum. And whenever Michael was diagnosed, he was 2.5, which fell into the bracket of severely mentally impaired. I just kept fighting, kept doing homemade activities, and actually realised there was more to meet the eye. Searching for something, nobody had any answers for my questions that I always had. Came across an autism miracle on YouTube. Found out about spellers and that was it.
Ryan at the moment just pulls us to whatever he wants, or he has a few words like snacks or juice and stuff like that there, but his feelings and if he's sick or anything like that there he can't tell, or if he's too, even the simple things like if he's too hot or too cold he can't communicate with us. So but that's what the aim, that he'll be able to tell us what he wants and what how he feels in the future.
My name's Emer and I'm the mother of a little boy, Killian, who is 9 years old. He's nearly 10, he'll be 10 in a couple of weeks. And I started coming to this course 4 weeks ago. I heard of it through our social club group and I'm so glad that I did come.
Researched Elizabeth Fossler. Found out that she was actually coming to Dublin. So I travelled with Michael down to Dublin. It was so hard. This thing just doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, it takes effort. The kids are up against their bodies. All types of factors are involved.
My aim was that Ryan, who has no form of communication, would be able to, with the hope someday that he'd be able to fully communicate by typing or spelling. Today's sessions were great. You could actually see what information Ryan actually has. He was able to spell within the first session hydrogen. So it just tells you what's in his brain, and this has given me an opportunity for that to come out hopefully over the next few months and years.
First attempt at S2C, I sort of rationalised my failure by telling myself, well, maybe I just don't have the magic touch you need for it, or maybe my son's particular sort of grade of autism somehow isn't a compatible fit. And I'm now embarrassed by how long those statements are.
The next morning after being at the talk on Monday evening, Killian came in to me and I turned around to him and I said, last night I was at a course where there was a lady there and she was talking to us all about her son and that he's a non-speaker as well and that her son also has epilepsy just like you used to, and she's been able to find this method of communicating called Spell2Communicate.
When I first came to Spell2Communicate, our life was absolute misery. Michael was violent. He was wrecking the house. It was just no quality of life for him or us as a family. And from doing Spell2Communicate, it is totally life-changing. The violence, there's no violence anymore. He is so much happier. He's settled. I actually have my wee fun-loving son back again.
And I'm going to do everything I can to help you communicate that, to help you learn this system, to be able to tell me what's going on, and I think this will be really good. And he looked up at me with this big smile that he always has, and he just smiled away and he just put his hand on my cheek, the big smile, and was like, okay, let's get up.
Sign language for deaf people was first invented in the States in the 1880s, 1890s. For 20 years or so, the men in white coats equivalent of back then saying, no, this is a scam. No, this isn't real. No, that's unthinkable. It's insulting. I think this is where we are with this method of communication now.
Yes, definitely, for anybody that has a child like Ryan. Ryan's 13 now, and it's never too late to start. There is children a lot older than Ryan that have started and are fully functional now with the Spell2Communicate typing. You know, there's even a wee boy, I think, in Ireland that's written a book and went to college and all, from you being able to communicate through spelling.
We still have our ups and downs, but life is totally transformed. All I done was worry about where Michael would end up. He was only 6 at the time when he was violent, and I was becoming afraid of him. And he was, you know, now he's coming 10. I don't have that fear anymore. Yeah, so completely has transformed our lives. We're all so much happier, and he's just thriving in every aspect of life. Just learning and progressing, and Spell2Communicate has just changed our lives.
What really struck me was then later on that day, and actually that morning as well, going into school, because we spoke all about presuming competence as well. So instead of having the usual radio or the usual nursery rhyme songs on, I put on a podcast, but it was a book describing neurodivergency in all shapes and forms, and that's what we listened to, and so we were taking that all in. And then that day when you came home, the note in your journal. So background is that Killian has started a new school, and it has been really hard, and it has been a big change, and being in the classroom is quite hard for Killian. But on this particular day, the note in the journal said that he spent most of the day in the classroom, where most days he might be lucky to get 10 minutes.
Expect to be amazed pretty soon. We all know there are scams out there, or if not a scam, there may be a curative scheme based on magical or optimistic or hopeful thinking, but S2C isn't that.
I just want to let you know how, I just wanted to kind of give you an idea briefly of how we got Keith to where he is, that he can communicate when you know, he clearly can't speak. So, you know, I kept on looking for something, I kept on seeing flashes of intelligence, and I even remember when he was 5, Keith was actually at a time when we had him in speech and language therapy, and he was being drilled with his you know, all that stuff that he eventually told me just wrecked his head, and it was a complete waste of time and our money as well. We were paying for it privately. So he, at that time when he was being drilled like that, he kept on playing a video clip from a film called Valiant, where there's like, you know, one of the cartoon characters is being forced to confess, and he keeps on saying, I'll never talk, and Keith was forever playing that bit over, I'll never talk. At the same time, a psychologist was telling me that we had to completely reduce the language we were using around Keith, because we were just confusing him. So you can imagine how isolating that is for a child, to sort of have their parents told to stop speaking to them essentially. It was just first car, then grandma's house, nothing else but that. So very, very isolating. 2019, we switched to Spell2Communicate, S2C. We switched from RPM to S2C. I really like the method. It's very replicable. It's robust. It's got a lot of science behind it now. And then Anna went off and became an S2C practitioner, Ireland's first S2C practitioner. And then I'm actually an S2C practitioner as well. Yeah, the only other thing I would say is that if you go away with just one thing tonight, it would be presumed competence. We were told that Keith couldn't understand a word we were saying. He was severely intellectually disabled. None of it was true. In fact, he's highly linguistic and got phenomenal literacy ability. So the opposite was actually true. Until they can actually spell out, I hated that book you were reading, which Eve has done with me now. You don't know whether that person really meant to walk away or not. And one of the most important things that Keeve wrote, was one of the most important things he said when he came into open communication, was he said, my body won't do what my brain asks it to do. My body does things I don't want it to do. And that's it in a nutshell. That's what dyspraxia is. And that they are the people that we work with.
I, A, N, F, A, L, L, O, N, C. Okay, I am Fallon.
I'm Ronnie Daly, and I have just retired after 40 years of teaching in special education, having had a wonderful career. But now and always, for the last 35 years, I've been working with children with autism, autistic students. But now I have discovered S2C, and it's my intention to train as a practitioner and take it from there. I'm really, really excited about what's ahead of me, and I'm hoping that my knowledge and my postgrads about autistic children will support that journey. We have spent so many years following the directions of clinicians, working with students, but I've always found it terribly frustrating because I knew I wasn't actually reaching the children, and I would try so many different things to help the children communicate. I did PECs, we did LOV, we did all of the things that were given to us back in those days. And I always found that I was always very enthusiastic about what I was doing, but I wasn't always given the opportunity to run with my enthusiasm. I actually used a lot of music to help students to gain extra kind of language skills. So, yeah. The students, all the students that would have come into my class, who would have read their psychological reports, and they would all have different levels of ID and non-verbal, and they're not capable of doing this, and they have to do the bare minimum, and wouldn't it be lovely if they could just do something simple? But I never believed any of that, and I was always kind of keen to watch the children and observe them, and saw so much potential. It was really, really heartbreaking to watch that. And yes, it's back to the diagnosis, and as Max was saying, when he was interviewed in the assembly, that the assessment situation is so wrong. And what I've learned so much from the talks here, I suppose I knew it, but it put it into words for me, that kind of teaching the motor skills and children going for assessments with psychologists, and it was all based on following motor, planning things and do this and move that, and the students would be running around the room. Sometimes they were brought in for psychological assessments to help get the children to sit down or whatever, but it's all so terribly wrong. I believe at this point, I suppose I've always believed it, but I now know that it was all wrong. I've done so much wrong in my career, but it was only based on the knowledge and the expertise that I would have been given from the experts, and going to case conferences, and it was all so much doom and gloom, and nobody was assuming competency.
But you always did, and you always said that, and
yeah.
that's what I always loved about Ronnie. Always assume competence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose I would have a very kind of keen sense in relation to just looking at the individual child. I'm a Montessori trained teacher from the old version of Montessori, and it was so prescriptive and so incredible. And I think the skills I've learned from that, and observing, and actually the unique individuals, has actually given me so much opportunities in the career I've just left. And I think those skills will really come into play again as I work towards being a communication practitioner. I am incredibly excited about the prospect, because I believe I have something to bring to the table, but I love the fact that it's so regulated. I love the fact that you have to be reaccredited every year.
My name is Ruth Hennessy. and I have an 11-year-old son called Oliver, who is a non-speaker or an unreliable speaker. I'm trying to think what the main things I've learned from this. I suppose the whole speech being 100% motor skill and language not, and because he can't speak doesn't mean you have a cognitive, you're not cognitively impaired. The whole apraxia thing, it's just hearing from the spellers, and this disconnect, this mind-body disconnect, and how incredibly frustrating it must be to be trapped in a body that either does what you don't want it to do and won't do what you want it to do, and then being maybe even kind of reprimanded for misbehaviours when really there's nothing you can do about it. I've also just can't get over, it's irrefutable, these spellers are spelling to communicate, and there's no, you can't deny it, it's right there in front of you. It's just been absolutely amazing to see them. And what I think you mentioned and stuck with me is what amazing listeners a lot of these non-speakers are, because the rest of us, like you said, are waiting for our next opportunity to talk, whereas they don't have that luxury. So they are taking everything in, and even when you think they're not listening, they're pacing up and down or maybe making a sound, it's all going in. They're listening to everything. So I don't know, mixed bag of emotions then, I suppose sad to think that they're so misunderstood, and kind of, the low expectations, maybe being spoken to like babies, and it's out of no badness, it's just that people don't know any better. And so sad for, I guess, the people who've lived and died never having had an opportunity. It's just heartbreaking. So I'm excited now for Oliver and what he will achieve, because I know he will. And I think you just want everyone to know, educators, family, friends, educators, people who are making decisions, because it's a human right. I mean, communication is a human right, and we have a fix. It's not a quick fix, but we have a tool there, and I think everyone needs to know about it. I mean, everyone thought the word was flat for how long, and I understand people being dubious, but when you have it there in front of you and you can see they're doing it, how can you deny it,
I hope you know that you can change the world.